Story 1. We moved halfway across the country, which I had budgeted for. What I did not expect was that it would cost $500 to register the car in our new state, 10 times what it cost back home. Everything else was expected. Story 2. Dental crown and root canal. Thought it would be $300, but it ended up $2,100. Floss, folks. Story 3. My divorce. I really wish I had not spent so much on his Christmas gift last year now that I know he was so busy having an affair with a coworker. Story 4. Water heater broke. The plumber inspected the gas exhaust and pointed out it was incorrectly installed on the unit. The unit was venting through an ancient, disused chimney that may not meet current building code. The house was built in 1890, so that is likely. It has probably caused mild carbon monoxide exposure, although our monitors have never alarmed. A chimney contractor is charging $4,000 to prepare the chimney. A new water heater is in the $3,000 range. This will take a few weeks to resolve. In the meantime, we are showering using my sous vide machine to heat a 5-gallon bucket and a battery-powered pump and shower head. We are boiling water to wash dishes. We will probably have hot water by Christmas. I am seeing lower prices for the unit in responses, which is good news. That estimate was the high end from online searches. I expect the contractor's actual quote after the week of Thanksgiving, since having hot water is not an immediate emergency for me. Story 5. Roof work cost $22,000, and of course they found live termites, so another $4,500 for the tenting. All because we wanted to paint the house for $11,000. We are a bit cash poor right now, but in a few weeks everything will be done and we will be good for another 10 to 20 years. Story 6. I am replacing my entire smart home system after it was infected with malware that kept randomly ordering 100 packs of toilet paper. The Internet of Threats is becoming far too personal. Story 7. $9,000 for house foundation repair, $5,000 for chimney replacement, $6,000 for income tax due to incorrect tax withholding, $4,000 for dental care for my son. Story 8. Supporting the household while my husband went 44 days without a paycheck because of the government shutdown. Story 9. It cost about $6,000 to clean up the mess caused by 3 large trees falling. I have not even replaced the fence yet. Story 10. I took my fur baby to the vet and had to say goodbye to her. I don't mind the cost to my wallet, but the cost to my heart I will never recover from. Story 11. Dental work. I am still shocked by the cost and time it has taken. Story 12. My cat became stressed and developed a urinary blockage. The initial estimate was $2,500, but the final cost was $1,500. Story 13. 23 days in the hospital and 2 surgeries. Another surgery and hospital stay are scheduled in December. Yay, American healthcare. Story 14. Unemployment. I realized the tremendous toll my former job was taking on my health when I was hospitalized at the very beginning of the year. I was using alcohol heavily to manage stress and to help me fall asleep after work. I resigned in January to apply for jobs in my sector that paid less but that I knew would not keep me awake at night. I did not anticipate being unemployed for 6 months and at times going weeks without interviews. I would not take any of it back. Because of that decision and period of unemployment, I now have a job that does not follow me home with a similar salary, a new group of friends, and I am several months sober. Story 15. Air source heat pump. The pump price was expected. The entire replumbing of the house and 11 new radiators were not included. Story 16. $7,000 for a molar extraction, bone graft, and an implant. Story 17. I bought a girl I had never met a plane ticket across the country, and she ended up staying. 9 months together. I wouldn't change anything about it. Story 18. A 7-month-old kitten became sick. He received 4 blood transfusions and spent 10 days in the intensive care unit. He is thriving now, but the poor kitten almost died. We are deeply grateful to his veterinarians and staff. Story 19. Stage 4 melanoma. A tumor the size of a baseball was removed from my armpit. A 1.2 centimeter tumor in my brain was treated with gamma knife radiosurgery. I underwent immunotherapy and spent 2 weeks in the hospital because the treatment nearly killed me. I was discharged yesterday. $1.5 million has been billed to my insurance since July. I have not worked since August. All our credit cards are maxed and all bills are past due, but I am still alive. This is not an expense contest I want to win. Story 20. I did not expect to go to 5 Formula One races this year. For anyone interested, the races were Silverstone, Austin, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. Story 21. My cat had some bathroom problems and had to go to the veterinarian. The bill was several $1,000s. He did not have urine crystals, though. Story 22. Income taxes. I fucked around and owed a lot more than I was prepared to owe. I almost had to pay interest on that. Story 23. A lawyer to clean up the mess from my failed engagement. Story 24. I incurred $1 million in shipping expenses. I started a business this year in March. It went viral out of nowhere. Story 25. My cat needed emergency surgery. I went from "he was a little quiet today" to "here is $3,000 and my entire nervous system" in about 6 hours. Zero regrets, but wow, did 2025 not ask for my financial consent. Story 26. My dog tore his cranial cruciate ligament and needed surgery. They found he had a joint issue and he required 2 surgeries. He developed an infection and needed additional follow-up care. $12,000 later, he is healed, but he is an expensive pet. Story 27. My kitten developed feline infectious peritonitis. It cost about $6,000 in total to save her between January and March. Story 28. My cat developed sores in and around her mouth. After several veterinary visits, trials of different prescription diets, and a visit to a feline dermatologist, we learned she is allergic to poultry. Now she eats rabbit-based cat food. Story 29. My dog was diagnosed with cancer. $17,000, and 4 weeks later, he was euthanized and passed peacefully at home. He was worth the debt, and I miss him every day. Story 30. A root canal, 2 extractions, an implant, and 2 crowns. Young people, take care of your teeth. I was once young and poor and ignored them. Now I am paying. Story 31. Cat bills included a weekend hospitalization and an echocardiogram, ending with saying goodbye. Story 32. I paid $510 an hour ago to cremate my wife's dog. I came home from a road trip and found that he had died. What a weird year. Story 33. Veterinary bills. One dog scratched his eye, which cost $400. The second dog, in his teenage phase, somehow ripped the skin on his back open. He required 3 urgent care visits to be sedated and stitched. The first 2 attempts failed. Those 2 visits alone cost $2,400. They took pity on us the 3rd time and heavily discounted our bill. Otherwise, the total amount would have been closer to $4,000. Story 34. $6,000 in veterinary bills for my cat. Pro tip. Ribbon is never put away well enough. The best way to keep ribbon away from your cat is to avoid having any ribbon. Story 35. I live in Houston. A broken air conditioner is not an option. Story 36. I had a kidney transplant. It cost about $250,000 United States dollars. Technically, we knew a few months ahead of time, but going into 2025, we did not know this would be the year I would find a match. I am very thankful for my donor. Story 37. Compared to others here, the most I spent was on a new coat. Cost me £350. It was a limited edition waterproof coat from a small outdoor clothing company that is more expensive but justifies the price with high-quality materials. Compared to similar coats, From provides details about the materials used. My favorite part was the magnetic buttons. Story 38. A $6,400 car repair. That Volvo made it to 175,000 miles with nothing but basic maintenance before it needed a major repair, so I am not too upset about it. Story 39. I bought a 2001 Subaru Outback in cash for $2,800 after being without a car for 11 months. My RAV4, recreational active vehicle with 4-wheel drive, Was repossessed a couple of weeks before Christmas last year. It took most of the year to save enough for the car and the 6-month insurance premium, but it is the best thing I have bought this year. Story 40. In my 72 years of living, the cost of basic items, the everyday things we need to survive, has always been low. Story 41. Spontaneous pneumothorax, also known as a collapsed lung, terrified me and made me quit vaping. Story 42. Prepaying for my cremation and setting up a trust with a lawyer cost about $4,000 after everything. Story 43. My dog needed an emergency visit to the veterinarian, and it wiped out my savings. Story 44. My 10-year-old cat spent 2 nights in a pet emergency hospital. I was told her kidneys were failing. That whole process, plus 2 veterinarian visits beforehand, cost $5,000. On the other end of the spectrum, a couple more shingles blew off my 26-year-old roof. I filed an insurance claim and it was approved. I received a check for $3,000 more than the replacement will cost. Story 45. I paid $27,000 in federal taxes. I used some of my retirement funds for a home down payment. They caught me off guard. Story 46. A cat got a thorn in her eye while running through a bush. The veterinarian saved the eye. It cost £3,500 or $4,600. I had no insurance. Story 47. My soul dog unexpectedly developed a fungal infection in his sinuses. The symptoms were subtle at first, so I ran him through all the usual blood work and urine tests, which revealed little. Eventually, we needed more invasive tests as his symptoms grew worse. The total cost exceeded $8,000, and he passed away on August 10th. Story 48. Daycare is expensive. I knew that, but I didn't realize how much. Story 49. Senior animals. A diabetic cat, a dog with seizures, and one with mysterious stomach issues. Easily $4,000 to $5,000 in unexpected expenses. It has cost more than the baby we had this year. Story 50. I am buying another pair of headphones because I ruined the others by falling asleep while wearing them. Story 51. My car needed a repair costing $2,000, and my dog's dental surgery cost another $2,000. Story 52. A $5,500 roof repair, followed by 2 guitars that cost $3,000 each. Once you pick up a fancy acoustic guitar, you just cannot say no. Story 53. I was charged $950 for what I thought would be a $109 front-end alignment, but additional work was required. Story 54. There was a leak in the kitchen. It was not too bad until they tested for asbestos. Story 55. We've had 3 major appliances fail this year. The most expensive by far was our boiler, which heats the house and our hot water. It was also the biggest pain to replace and repair. Luckily, I am handy and my father helped a lot. We replaced it for around 5,000 Canadian dollars when I was quoted north of 10,000 Canadian dollars by 2 companies. We have a rental property, and our tenants gave us about 3 weeks' notice that they were leaving. The whole family had been in Africa for months already. I was not in a position to invoke our tenancy laws about how much notice they were supposed to give. I was not disappointed they were leaving. I knew the place needed some work and I was renting at about 30% below market. I was not ready for the amount of damage to the place. The kitchen and both bathrooms were ripped out. I had to sanitize and clean the whole house because there was some black mold. Luckily, only surface mold. I will have to repaint the whole house. From start to finish, I am looking at around 12,000 Canadian dollars in costs. Comes with the territory. By the end of the year, the place should be nice, clean, and ready to hit the market. Story 56. $8,300 to repair or replace the air conditioning unit in my house. That was painful. Story 57. I lost a 6-figure job due to layoffs. It was not technically an expense, but it was not great. Story 58. What began as a toilet leak turned into an impromptu bathroom renovation. It required a new subfloor, new flooring, a new vanity, and extensive plumbing work. Story 59. Rodent exclusion, $3,200 for the whole area. They did an excellent job. Story 60. I had to remove construction and tile worth $40,000 from a bathroom remodel because the contractor we hired was terrible, so I had to start over. Story 61. I had to call a plumber for the first time because I ran a lot of shredded chicken down the disposal, which clogged the drains in the kitchen and the bathtub. It was not a large expense in the end, just under $400, but it was definitely unexpected. Laughing out loud. Story 62. My car had a cracked oil filter housing that cost $1,200. It is an 8-year-old Audi, still a blast, and it is paid off, so the repair was manageable. Story 63. My wife lost her job at the end of January. We knew it was coming for about 6 weeks, but she was unemployed until about a month ago. This is not strictly an expense, but the net result is the same. Less usable income. Story 64. I thought it was my air conditioning this summer, which cost $4,000, but my roof and ceiling outdid it at about $6,000. I do not have the money to fix the roof because I spent that on the air conditioning. My heater is broken and I cannot afford to fix it. It will be a cold winter in my house. Story 65. The medical insurance through my union started pulling the rug out. Story 66. I had atrial fibrillation and underwent catheter ablation. I have been free of atrial fibrillation for 6 months, so I have that going for me. Story 67. Medical co-payments from February have just been paid off, and now it is time for Christmas. Story 68. A total of $1,000 in medical bills owed for services acquired more than 3 years ago that were never sent to me. I finally received notification in January of this year and am still paying it off. Story 69. My heater broke and could not be repaired. I could not get the money together for many months to pay for it. The company kept calling. Finally, I told them I would call when I had the money. They were confused as to why I did not just put it on a credit card. They charge a 3% fee for credit card payments. Why would I put something I could not afford on a card only to incur more interest and fees I could not afford? Fortunately, it did not get cold until a week after the new heater was installed. I hope the new one will last 20 years. Story 70. The front sway bar on my Grand Caravan broke and needed to be welded back together. With additional repairs, I ended up paying $4,000. Then my son needed 2 root canals and other dental work, which cost $13,000. I am looking forward to 2026. Story 71. My old phone gave up on me, and I had spent my last savings on a new phone. Story 72. A $6,000 veterinary bill and a $5,000 bill for a collapsed drain on the same day. Story 73. I hit approximately 2 to 4 traffic cones Tuesday night at breakneck speed. I am pretty sure the radiator is damaged, and I do not know what I did to the alignment. That's probably what happened. Story 74. Sewer main and landscaping. Felt like a year of college down the drain. Story 75. A 65-year-old maple tree split in half in a storm. Cleaning it up, along with some other trees, cost $6,000. Story 76. I was blackmailed by an Indian man after I showed him my genitals. He never even showed me his. What a ripoff. Story 77. 2,500. My old boy's dental surgery. He is doing well and is happy now. I could not leave his side the whole way through. Note: my old boy is my dog. Story 78. I am moving from employer-sponsored health insurance to Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act continuation coverage. The premium is $2,350 per month, up from about $500. That is cheaper than Affordable Care Act coverage, as far as I can tell. Story 79. Total sewage replacement from my driveway to the main stack. I got lucky because they only had to dig down 2 to 3 feet into the concrete. I know people who had to dig much deeper all the way to the street. $13,000 felt like a financial blow and also a bargain. Story 80. $2,000 for plumbing. An extra $1,000 for the funeral. $1,200 for dental work, plus another $2,000 to finish it next year. I am sure I am forgetting something. The good news is the year is almost over. Story 81. A $500 garage maintenance job turned into an $8,000 garage door and motor replacement. Story 82. I have to get bi-weekly lawn service because I have been so busy with work and caring for family members who are ill with cancer. We received a violation notice from the city because the grass was taller than 8 inches. Story 83. A $1,500 car repair occurred a few days after the warranty ran out. Story 84. Our dog died, and it cost a few $1,000s. Cremation was not as expensive compared with the other charges. Story 85. I am in the United States and had an emergency room visit. I put my back out in March and was in so much pain. Even with good insurance, it still cost me a few $1,000s. Second, dental work. I developed an infection under a very old root canal. I had the tooth pulled and am getting an implant. Story 86. I bought my first house, which was expected. Less than a week after moving in, the air conditioning failed. A $14,000 replacement of the entire heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system was very unexpected. I had a home inspection before buying, and I was told it had at least 10 more years of life. I learned the lesson the hard way. Have a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technician inspect the system first. Story 87. Unexpectedly good. A long-distance relationship has worked out. Unexpectedly bad. Travel costs to maintain that relationship are expensive. Story 88. I paid $3,000 because I had mold under the bathroom floor of the house I bought. I also paid $650 for a home inspection. I am about to get another insurance-required home inspection, and they will likely tell me to replace my 15-year-old roof. I have $9,500 left in my bank, so lucky. Fucking me. I should have stayed renting. Story 89. I had a foundation slab leak and another leak in the kitchen that totaled $25,000 for both. Story 90. A water leak inside the bathroom wall led to gutting the bathroom. Asbestos testing passed. Mold was found behind the shower wall from floor to ceiling. There were multiple problems before repairs could begin. Homeowner's insurance does not cover any of the mold. I need a drink. Story 91. We brought it upon ourselves. We took an impromptu vacation because we were exhausted from working on a renovation every day for 6 months. We went during peak season and did not budget or pay attention to costs. When we returned and checked our bank and credit card statements, we were shocked. It was a privileged, unexpected expense that shows decisions made under stress to relieve stress are not always wise or responsible. Story 92. For my son, a neuropsychological evaluation not covered by insurance cost $4,000, and dental work that required sedation cost $1,400. The dog ate a large amount of chocolate, costing $1,500. Thankfully, we have insurance. Story 93. Stillbirth is rarely discussed, especially the medical bills, burial or graveside service costs, headstone expenses, and the cost of taking time off afterward. Story 94. My car's alternator failed. I had to use the last of my paid time off to take it to a shop for a replacement. Story 95. My dog developed pancreatitis, and a few days later was diagnosed with a heart murmur. Story 96. My landlord decided to move back into my former rental unit, so I had to move. Expenses included application fees, a brief period of overlapping rent, a new security deposit, renting a moving van, boxes and tape, small items that fit in the old place but not the new one and had to be replaced, and higher gas costs for my longer commute. Story 97. When I moved in, a likely broken thermostat on my radiator caused an extremely large heating bill, nearly 3 times the estimated normal amount. It took 3 months to get it fixed, during which the radiator produced excessive heat. Story 98. I am replacing the rack and pinion in my vehicle. Thankfully, Subaru paid for half of the repair. Story 99. My mother had cataract surgeries. That was painful. I told her she is not allowed to have any more major expenses for a while. Story 100. My homeowner's insurance was canceled, and I was required to get the California Fair Plan. I'm not sure who it is fair for because it costs 3 times what I was paying. Story 101. A record-breaking government shutdown as a federal worker. Story 102. A freaking 2016 Mustang Grand Touring. I didn't see that coming back in January. I'm the happiest man on earth right now. Story 103, iPhone data recovery. It is costing me $3,500 to extract my data. I am sad, laughing out loud. Story 104, I bought a new cell phone, an iPhone 16 Pro Max. It ran fine until I installed the new Apple mobile operating system. I broke it, and now it's a $1,400 paperweight. Story 105, I am a full-time parent and caregiver to my toddler grandson. Story 106, $6,800 to replace the sewer line. Apparently roots from a tree we do not even like decided to throw a party in our pipes. The plumber said the sentence every homeowner dreads. Sir, your entire front yard is about to become a trench. The year 2025 was when I learned that cast iron does not mean indestructible. It just means it waits 68 years to ruin your life all at once. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Story 107. A tiny leak in the bathroom led to a new sewer line being dug all the way to the septic tank. What I thought would be a quick fix turned into a $15,000 plumbing bill. I now bring friends over to show them the physics of flushing my toilet, because I'm not paying that kind of money and not showing it off. Story 108. My son is facing an unexpected move and needs financial help to get started. Story 109. We had our floors redone after a leaking supply line behind the wall by the range in the kitchen caused the floorboards in front of the sink to warp. We filed a claim with our insurance company, which denied it, saying the leak did not appear to be sudden and accidental. That was a surprise because our floors were fine until they were not, and we filed the claim immediately. We appealed to the State Board of Insurance, but it still sided with the insurance company. After replacing the floorboards, including packing out, sanding, and staining, we incurred about $22,000 in costs. Story 110. Almost $8,000 for being hospitalized after a suicide attempt. Story 111. I almost died, so hitting that sweet deductible in mere days was fun. Story 112. I had to pay the deductible for damage to my house during summer storms. It is just now being fixed. I had to repair my heater for $2,000. A new dishwasher will be delivered tomorrow after paying for repairs, and I am looking for a new refrigerator. I also likely need a new tire and will be buying new tires for my daughter's car. Life is so fucking expensive. Story 113. Exterminator. A huge nest of yellow jackets decided to make a back door into my basement. Story 114. Where to begin? House purchase. Standard Audi repairs. Story 115. I bought and renovated an apartment with my wife in Queens. It was worth every penny. Story 116. I tore my anterior cruciate ligament. It ruined my year so much that I am not even upset about the financial cost. Laughing out loud. Story 117. My husband's hospital bill after he almost died from sepsis was $80,000 in change. Story 118. Not urinating at work caused urinary retention. 2 emergency room visits, several urology appointments, and a bill of about $6,000. I am a pharmacy manager who is needed so frequently that I do not urinate between 7 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. It is unpleasant. I hate pushing myself this way, but people need me. Story 119. After all the car repairs, including last year's, I should have just bought a new used car. Story 120. I bought a condo, the first home I have ever owned. I started working with a broker, not expecting to actually find something in my price range because it is a high cost of living area. A house with a yard is out of the question. Story 121. It is a dead heat between our new wood stove and chimney and our new split king bed with adjustable head and foot elevation. Story 122. We installed a new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system after our contractor replaced a faulty support beam in the garage. Thank you, home equity loan. Story 123. Unexpected. Second quarter tax bill. Expected. 10-year anniversary. Story 124. I totaled my car last weekend, and the insurance payment will not cover half of what I still owe. I am going to buy a used vehicle this weekend and will most likely have 2 car payments for a while even though I will only have 1 car. That is probably it. Story 125. Manjaro Zepbound, the weight loss drug, has cost me around €5,000 so far and resulted in a loss of 25 kilograms. Story 126. All car-related expenses for my husband and me. New car loan payment, gas canister replacement, and 4 new tires for our secondary car. Story 127. A used Skoda Enyaq. Our old car started falling apart, and we had been planning on an electric vehicle next. We just didn't expect it to be this year or that it would be that car. Story 128. A settlement for a court case in which I was not actually guilty. Story 129. My dog required an expensive purchase and regular upkeep, but he is worth every penny. Story 130. Veterinary bills are high. Our dog had 2 bouts of cancer, one treated with surgery and another treated with a round of chemotherapy. She also had a bleeding stomach ulcer that required an emergency blood transfusion, and that is on top of her regular medications. She is still going strong. My 13-year-old dog is indestructible. Story 131. Costs of being homeless at the end of this month. I am a recently divorced single mother. I lived with friends for a year, but when they went their separate ways, I was left to fend for myself just as the divorce was finalized. I expected the divorce to be expensive, but I did not expect to be unable to find a place after 5 applications were rejected and the woman I planned to move in with withdrew her application. As of Saturday, I will have to rent a moving truck and put my belongings in a storage unit that I will pay for over the next couple of weeks. Then I have to pay for an Airbnb to stay in while I have my children so they can have a room and we can shower. After the 5th, I will be living in my car until I get the children back from their father on the 10th. If I can find a place to move into during that time, I will need to pay the deposit, administrative fees, application fees, and first month's rent before I can rent another moving truck to move everything out of storage. I am very fortunate that friends have helped with some of these costs, but I have also been losing hours at work, which I know will catch up to me. I am hoping my ex-husband will assume his share of the debt, which he placed in my name during our marriage, soon so I can use credit for the deposit. Story 132. I did not have any super big expenses, but I had several approximately $500 expenses back to back that have crippled me financially. I was actually able to save a little money and bought a $600 engagement ring for my now wife. As soon as that happened, I got sick and spent a few days off work. I was new and did not have paid time off, so my paycheck the next week was about $200. As a result, I ended up having to put bills on my credit card for a little while, thinking I would pay them off quickly. I had to fill up the propane tank for the house, which was another $500 expense. Then I developed a methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infection in my thumb. I work with my hands and had to take a week off. I ended up in the hospital and took 3 different antibiotics, which led to a secondary thrush infection. I got better and later had another methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infection in my hip. More time off, more bills on the credit card. A few months later, my credit card, which I had never carried a balance on in my entire life, was now around $2,500. I keep paying as much as I can on it, but the only way I have extra to do that is by working overtime. I have been able to avoid paying interest, but every time I make progress, I end up having another expense. Story 133. I am moving and refurnishing because my landlord sold the apartment and raised the rent significantly. Story 134. I am paying 2 rents after breaking up with my ex, who refused to end our shared lease. Story 135. I paid $900 for new glasses that came with the wrong prescription. I am still waiting. It has been 6 weeks. Story 136. I bought a new road bike. I wasn't planning to buy one this year, but I found a good deal. I also bought a new garage door. Story 137. We had to get a new utility terrain vehicle because a tree fell on our 4-wheeler on my parents' anniversary. It was a large tree, and the all-terrain vehicle was totaled. Story 138. My wife had intraocular lens replacement surgery on both eyes this year. Her insurance refused to pay. Story 139. I had 2 cars that both experienced mechanical failures within 2 months of each other. The Focus Sports Technologies I had for 12 months failed suddenly. It cost me 3 separate recoveries, a garage visit, and hire vehicles to complete a house move. I was out of pocket more than £3,000, and I am still paying the finance because it was written off due to a mechanical failure and not covered by insurance. I bought another one, and after 2 weeks it suffered the same fault. There is a known issue with certain Focus engines, and I experienced it twice in 2 months with 2 cars. Recovery and hire vehicles for the second car cost another £2,000. Now I am getting a new car with a £1,500 down payment. It has been an expensive year, and all I have to show for it are 2 dead cars. Story 140. The landlord raised the rent by almost $400 a month at renewal, which meant I would have to cover all the costs of moving to a new apartment. Alternatively, I needed new control arms for my car because the old ones were severely worn, and I had to go into debt for that. Story 141. I did not intend to move, but I stumbled upon a house listing in our neighborhood that resolved many of the annoyances with our own house. It cost about twice what we paid for our previous house in 2016, but thanks to changes in the market, we were able to recoup much of the difference. Still, it was not something we had planned to do. Story 142. Nostrils and soft palate on one side. A cancerous spot was removed from the other side. 5,000. Story 143. Emergency surgery for my dog after a tumor ruptured and caused internal bleeding. Story 144. I had a mammogram. The imaging center was not covered by my insurance, and it cost $800. They later refunded me $300, thankfully. Story 145. The dog had a back injury. X-rays and laser treatment were expensive. $1,200 later. Story 146. It cost $20,000 to have the house repainted. The paint was chipping, bubbling, and cracking in several places, so it needed to be done. I couldn't stand the robin's egg blue the previous owners chose. It was not really an unexpected expense, more of an unexpected price tag. Story 147. I received a massive speeding ticket. Fortunately, I didn't go to jail. Story 148. Fractured bone and back injury are 2 separate conditions. Story 149. The endoscopy cost $500 to $600 and resulted in a diagnosis of celiac disease. Story 150. I went in for a routine dental appointment and had a small spot of concern removed and biopsied. Thankfully, it was not cancerous, but it was still very expensive since I live in the United States. Story 151. Maxed out insurance coverage from a 6-month battle with listeria and the costs of being chronically ill. Story 152. I had a $500 collision deductible. A teenager on an electric bike ran through an intersection and hit my car. The insurance company will seek subrogation, so I should get the money back. A $350 pet adoption fee. I went in for 1 kitten and came home with twin sisters. We also replaced the water heater and the water softener, which cost more than $2,000 in total, but that was not unexpected. Story 153. 2 new built-in packaged terminal air conditioner units to replace units that were more than 30 years old. $9,000. Story 154. Food. Family size was cut in half and the food budget increased by almost 1/3. Story 155. I considered starting a business or taking a trip to Hawaii, which cost about twice what I expected. Story 156. I became addicted to Lego. I spent close to $5,000 already. Story 157. We enrolled our puppy in a board and train program. Once he turned 8 months old, he began showing fear aggression and nearly bit someone. Training options in our area were limited, and our only viable choice was a 4-month program that alternated 2 weeks of boarding and 2 weeks at home and cost $4,000. We just finished it and it was well worth the money. Our dog is still unusual, but he now has a decent chance of being relatively stable as an adult. He is the type of dog that would never make it out of a shelter, so investing that time and money in him was essentially a matter of life and death. Story 158. Landscaping for our home was quoted at over $350,000 for mostly unexciting work. A rear deck, 2 small concrete slabs, a shorter than average driveway, a 60-centimeter high retaining wall, some privacy screens, a small above-ground plunge pool that required no digging, and some planting. We are now hiring family and their trade contacts and have spent $130,000 so far. We are nearly finished, with only the driveway remaining. Pricing and quoting are insane. I support trades making a profit, but some quotes were ridiculous. I was quoted $18,000 for planting and it cost us about $500. Story 159. Our electric bill in July was $600 more than normal, and we were on a balanced budget. The bill was due and had to be paid. After years of minimal dental expenses, I cracked a tooth. My share of the crown with insurance was $950. My spouse had a tooth pulled and another crown for $750, and one more crown will likely cost another $950. It was unexpected, and the dental work was put on credit. Story 160. I spent $65,000 on a new car and crashed it into a parking garage wall. Story 161. I had to remodel my front yard. The previous owner converted it into a driveway without any permits. 2 years later, I received a letter stating I had 3 months to restore the front yard to its previous state. I paid €6,000. The fine would have been €10,000. Check the building permits when buying a house. Story 162. Wow. We had a power surge that damaged several items in the house because I backfed a generator into the electrical panel by mistake, although it was isolated from the utility mains. I immediately ordered a standby generator. The total cost was $7,500. While waiting for it to arrive, I went to do the dishes and released an air bubble in the hot water line. The water heater then failed and leaked throughout the basement. The water softener, sump pump, and plumbing were old and in poor condition, so they were all replaced. I spent about $15,000 on repairs to the house this year. Last year, I had to replace the well for about $10,000. Story 163. I am paying $4,000 in rent because my brother refused to get a job while waiting for a phone call he never received. Story 164. My car's control arm broke just as I pulled into a parking lot. A few weeks later, I had to replace the air conditioning compressor. Story 165. A $30,000 down payment on an apartment. I had not planned to buy during the first half of the year, but things fell into place. Story 166. My husband has decided he will only stay at the deluxe Walt Disney World resorts adjacent to Epcot, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Don't get me wrong, they are lovely, but way more expensive than the value resorts. Story 167. My left eye had a strange reaction, and I went to a specialist. He misdiagnosed and mistreated the condition, which was severe. It was so severe that I am now completely blind in my left eye. I am a 52-year-old woman with no family or friends in the state where I live. I spent all of my money on doctor visits and surgeries. I filed for bankruptcy last Monday. I cannot drive or get used to this, and I cannot obtain disability benefits because in the United States you must be blind in both eyes to qualify. My balance is impaired, so walking is difficult. I still cannot believe this, but the bruises from running into things and falling make the reality clear. Story 168. Water damage destroyed my living room floors when a leaking sewer pipe flooded them. Allstate homeowners insurance declined to cover the damage. I owe $22,000 that I will be paying off for a while. It took 10 months before I found someone to repair it on credit. I could not use my entire living room and dining room for almost a year. Story 169. The largest unexpected expense, I think, was that one of our service vans developed a head gasket leak. It was a fairly costly repair, but still cheaper than buying a new van. Story 170. New range hood. The equivalent of roughly $350. Not too bad a year, all things considered. Story 171. Water damage repairs. I have a small rental property. My tenant sublet the upstairs with my permission. The subletter only stayed on weekends. One Sunday he ran the bathtub and forgot to turn it off, flooding the entire upstairs bathroom, which is directly above the downstairs bathroom. I paid $3,500 out of pocket. Story 172. I had an emergency room visit because my back spontaneously herniated at the fourth lumbar vertebra and damaged several nerves. Fortunately, my insurance is covering the spinal fusion in 3 weeks. Story 173, a double mastectomy. After insurance, my portion is over $10,000. They can get bent if they think I'm going to pay that. Story 174, I had half the wastewater pipes in our house replaced after discovering a serious leak in the basement. Story 175, a dog required an endoscopy to remove a tennis ball it had swallowed. Story 176, the cat was in remission from 2 high-grade cancers but was diagnosed with a third, apparently unrelated cancer, an abdominal carcinoma that required many ultrasounds and very expensive medications. Even with pet insurance, the cost was brutal. At-home euthanasia and private cremation cost about $1,100 before insurance reimbursed part of the euthanasia. Story 177, reaching my out-of-pocket maximum for the first time. Story 178, our dishwasher was broken by the technician who ran the new reverse osmosis line to the fridge, but they say he did not and we have no proof. I gave up and paid $800 for a new one. Story 179, I have a $4,000 tax bill because, after owing a much smaller amount for the 2023 tax year, I forgot to adjust my withholding. Story 180, a root canal without dental insurance costs about $3,000 including the crown. Story 181, I am buying out the water heater from the rental company at my rental unit. I know I am privileged to have an investment property, but these tank rental companies are the worst scam on earth. $2,000 for a water tank that is 7 years old? Please go eat shit and die. Laughing out loud. Story 182, our cat had surgery to remove a cancerous tumor from his intestines and will need 5 rounds of chemotherapy. We will be paying for it for a long time, but he is still with us, and that makes it worth every penny. Story 183, my car decided to be a piece of shit, and even though it was subject to a recall and the company offered a buyback, I had to bring $6,000 to the table to pay off my loan because I bought the car at a terrible time and had only owned it for about 2 years. Story 184, the sewer line collapsed 2 weeks before our wedding. Our lateral runs 10 to 11 feet deep. It was not cheap. Story 185, our dog had a mole that started bleeding and would not stop, so we scheduled surgery that day to have it removed. The veterinarian found several similar growths and removed them while he was under anesthesia. They were cancerous, so now whenever we find a large, suspicious mole, we have to pay for surgery to remove it. Story 186, my mother died at the end of 2024. I arranged her funeral, flew back to her home country, settled assets and paperwork across multiple countries, and was taxed after her death, which felt like being kicked when I was already down. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.